Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into a stack of fascinating sources to give you a shortcut to being truly well-informed.
And today, we're heading somewhere really special.
We are. We're journeying into a landscape that Theodore Roosevelt himself described as fantastically broken in form and so bizarre in color as to seem hardly properly to belong to this earth.
That's a perfect description. We are heading to the incredible Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota.
Absolutely.
Our deep dive today is going to take you on, well, basically, an epic geological journey through these really striking badlands.
Yeah, we want to help you uncover how these unique formations came to be.
And what ancient stories they hold, within those vibrant layers.
Right, and what you can experience and maybe understand there today.
It really all starts with Roosevelt's own kind of profound connection to this land, doesn't it?
It really does. He saw the Badlands grade all the way from those that are almost rolling to those that are so fantastically broken. That quote just nails it.
He wasn't just looking from afar.
No, he was living it. He even shoveled lignite coal right from the hillsides for his stove. This was back in the 1880s.
Now that's what you call a hands-on appreciation for geology.
Exactly.
It perfectly illustrates just how unique and impactful this terrain is.
Definitely.
And it's important to clarify for you listening that when we say badlands with a lowercase b, we're talking about a geological term.
Right, not just one specific place.
Exactly. It describes terrains with soft, easily eroded sedimentary rocks. You find them all over the world: Wyoming, Utah, Colorado.
Canada, New Zealand, even Italy and Spain, Argentina.
Yep. And then, of course, there's Badlands National Park, capitalized. That's the specific park in South Dakota.
But our focus today is squarely on Theodore Roosevelt National Park's Badlands up in North Dakota.
That's the one.
So to understand this incredible layer cake we see today, we have to rewind the clock. Way back.
Way back. We're talking the Paleocene epoch, over 65 million years ago.
So what ancient forces were already at play then, setting the stage for these, dramatic formations?
Okay, so picture this. Western North America is buckling and folding. It's actively creating the immense Rocky Mountains.
Right, the Rockies are rising.
And as they rise, the usual suspects, water, wind, ice, immediately start breaking them down.
Erosion kicks in straight away.
You got it.
Yeah.
And rivers flowing off the eastern slopes carry huge amounts of sediment, sand, silt, mud right into this basin.
The basin that would eventually become North Dakota.
Exactly.
So huge rivers are basically moving mountain bits into this area. But where do volcanoes fit in?
Good question. At the same time, you had volcanoes erupting pretty explosively across the west. Think South Dakota, Montana, Idaho.
Okay.
They spewed out enormous quantities of ash. This ash then got carried maybe by wind, maybe by water, into North Dakota.
And it settled where?
It settled in vast, calm bodies of standing water, mingling with all those sediments coming off the Rockies.
It's still hard to wrap your head around millions of years of layering like that.
It really is.
So when all that sediment and ash settled, what was the result? Geologically speaking, what rocks are we actually looking at?
Well, over truly immense timescales, these continuous layers of sand, silt, and mud, they got compacted.
Squashed down.
Yeah, squashed down to form the sandstones, siltstones, and mudstones we see today. The volcanic ash layers, meanwhile, they transformed into bentonite clay.
Bentonite, that's the stuff that swells up when it gets wet.
That's the one. It swells significantly when wet and shrinks when dry. This constant expansion and contraction, it really contributes massively to the instability of these badlands.
So that's part of why they erode so easily.
Definitely. It keeps the landscape constantly in motion, always changing. And this slow stacking, like that geological layer cake you mentioned,
Yeah.
it began maybe 75 million years ago with the Pierre Shale right at the bottom, and continued up to about 28 million years ago with the Sharks Formation near the top.
Wow, that is an incredible span of deep time. Tell us more about that bottom layer, the Pierre Shale. What does that tell us?
Well, what's really fascinating here is that the Pierre Shale was deposited by the Western Interior Seaway.
The what now?
The Western Interior Seaway. Imagine a huge, shallow inland sea. It stretched from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to the Arctic Ocean.
Seriously? Covering most of the Great Plains?
Yep, covering most of the Great Plains in warm water. It was around at the same time as the dinosaurs, teeming with marine life, though You wouldn't find actual dinosaur fossils in the shale itself.
Okay, so North Dakota was basically a massive seafloor for millions of years.
Pretty much.
And what about those yellow mounds I've heard about? Are they linked to that ancient sea?
Yes, exactly. The yellow mounds are a really striking, brightly colored version of the Pierre Shale.
How did they get yellow?
Well, after that western interior seaway gradually drained away northward, the leftover shales weathered into soils.
Okay.
And these are now preserved as paleosols, ancient fossilized soils. Their distinctive mustardy color comes from a mineral called goethite.
Goethite. Got it.
It's like a direct, vivid record of a major environmental shift from deep sea to dry land right here.
That's amazing. So beyond the shale and the ash, what other kinds of rocks make up these layers?
Well, throughout the layers, you'll definitely find sandstones. These are often the remnants of ancient river channels that used to crisscross the landscape.
Like sandy river bottoms turned to rock.
Precisely. There are also occasional limestone lenses. These formed when calcium-rich groundwater flowed through ancient lakes and precipitated out calcium carbonate.
Okay.
And like we said, volcanic ash is a key ingredient. Often it's like a 50-50 mix of ash and sediment in many layers.
Is there any pure ash?
There is actually. One specific layer called the Rockefort ash is pretty much pure volcanic ash. It acts as a really important time marker across the whole region.
So each rock type, sandstone, limestone, ash, tells a different part of the story.
Exactly. Clues about constantly changing environments over millions and millions of years.
So deposition spends eons building this colossal stack. But a stack isn't badlands. Now we need the sculptor, the force that started carving this, well, relatively flat canvas into that fantastically broken landscape. How did the carving begin?
Right. So while depositions patiently built everything up, erosion began stripping it away much more recently, geologically speaking.
How recently?
Around 500,000 years ago, right around when the Pliocene epoch was ending.
500,000 years ago? Still sounds like a long time to me.
Huh. It is, but compared to the deposition phase, it's pretty quick. The Badlands we see today are truly the end product of just these two processes, deposition and erosion.
Simple, but incredibly powerful.
Exactly.
And the main sculptor, the dominant force, was a river, right? The Little Missouri River.
That's right. The Little Missouri played a huge role.
How did it manage to carve such dramatic shapes?
Well, initially it wasn't so dramatic. It just sort of meandered gently through wide, shallow valleys across the western Dakotas.
Okay, a lazy river.
Kind of. But then during the Pleistocene epoch, that's the Ice Ages,
Right.
massive continental ice sheets advanced south from Canada. Huge walls of ice.
And they got in the way.
They literally blocked the Little Missouri's path northward. It couldn't flow north anymore.
So where did it go?
It was forced to carve out a new, much steeper course heading east and south. Instead of aiming for Hudson Bay, it got rerouted to eventually flow into the Mississippi River system.
Wow, the ice sheets didn't just block it, they completely changed its destination.
Completely redirected its destiny, you could say.
So what happened when it took this new, steeper path?
Well, a steeper path means faster water, more energy.
Makes sense.
So the river and all its little tributary streams started cutting down really deeply and really quickly through those soft sedimentary rocks.
And that's what carved the fantastically broken topography.
That's exactly it. That rapid incision created the Badlands we see today. And what's truly remarkable is the speed.
You mentioned it was fast.
The Badlands eroded about 1 inch per year.
1 inch per year. That's incredible for a rock. So if I don't know, left my boot out there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, maybe not your boot. But the landscape itself is changing that fast.
How does that compare to, say, other rocks, like granite?
Oh, it's way faster. For comparison, the granite in the Black Hills, just over to the west, erodes at maybe 1 inch every 10,000 years.
10,000. So the Badlands are wearing away. Wow, about 10,000 times faster.
Pretty much. Scientists even estimate that in the next 500,000 years or so, these Badlands will have eroded completely away.
Gone. Just flattened out.
Transformed into a much gentler landscape, yeah. It really highlights how dynamic and almost fleeting this landscape is in geological time.
That's mind-boggling. 500,000 years gone. But for now, these rocks hold so many stories, especially fossils, right?
Oh, definitely. The fossil record here is like opening a window directly to the past.
What kind of things are we finding?
The North Dakota Badlands have a wealth of fossils. You find bands of lignite coal, which is fossilized plant matter.
Right, the stuff Roosevelt used.
Yep. And petrified trees. Plus fossils of freshwater clams, snails, crocodiles, alligators, turtles.
Crocs and gators in North Dakota.
Yep. and even champsosaurs.
Champsosaurs, what are they?
They were large, crocodile-like reptiles. Some grew over 10 feet long.
Whoa.
They really confirm this ancient swampy environment was just teeming with diverse aquatic life.
Yeah.
Not just tiny critters.
So clearly not the semi-arid grasslands we see there today.
Not at all.
These fossils paint a totally different picture. What was the environment like back then?
Well, these clues point to an ancient park that was basically on the eastern edge of a huge, flat, swampy area.
Okay.
Crisscrossed by rivers, fanning out into a broad delta, probably near sea level. Picture really dense forests, giant sequoia, bald cypress, magnolia trees.
Wow, growing right in or near the water?
Exactly. Growing in or very near shallow, warm waters. It was a very different world. Almost subtropical, you could say.
And those fallen leaves and branches in the swamps? That's what became the lignite coal.
That's precisely it. Over time, more sediments piled on top, the pressure built up, compacted the peat, caused chemical changes.
And turned it into that soft, brownish coal.
Right. And yes, that story about Roosevelt and his ranch hands shoveling it out for their stoves, it just perfectly connects that deep geological past to relatively recent human history.
It really does. What about the petrified wood? How does wood turn into stone, and why is there so much of it here?
Petrified wood is amazing. It's like nature's stone art.
Yeah.
When plants or animals get buried quickly, they're protected from decay. That boosts their chance of becoming a fossil.
Okay. Quick burial is key.
Very key. So for the trees here, silica-rich groundwater, often leaching silica from all that volcanic ash.
Ah, the ash connection again.
Yep. That water soaked into the buried wood. Slowly, it dissolved the original organic stuff in the wood and replaced it, almost molecule by molecule.
And minerals.
With tiny quartz crystals, mostly. And in many cases, the replacement is so incredibly perfect that you can still see the internal structures.
Like the tree rings.
Exactly. Like the delicate growth rings, perfectly preserved in solid stone.
That's incredible. Stone trees still showing their age rings.
It is pretty cool.
And then there's clinker, this fiery red rock that seems to defy erosion. How does that form?
Clinker. Yes, it's one of the most visually striking parts of the Badlands, and really important structurally, too.
Okay.
Clinker, or sometimes people locally call it scoria.
Scoria, right.
It forms when lightning strikes, or maybe even prairie fires, ignite those lignite coal beds underneath the surface.
The coal seems to catch fire underground.
Exactly. And these coal beds can then just smolder and burn for years, sometimes even decades.
Wow. So what does the burning do to the rock above it?
As the coal burns, it basically bakes the overlying sediments, the mudstone, the siltstone. It transforms them into a hard, natural brick.
So it's like a giant natural kiln operating underground.
That's a great analogy. It really is. Turning soft rock into hard rock.
And it's fire's permanent signature on the landscape, literally directing how things erode.
You got it. The vibrant red-orange color usually comes from iron in the sediments oxidizing as it bakes.
Rusting, basically.
Kind of, yeah. And because this clinker is way more resistant to erosion than the softer rocks around it,
It gets less behind.
it forms the durable caps you see on top of buttes and knobs and ridges. That's why they stand tall, while the softer stuff erodes away around them. They're like the skeletons of the Badlands.
And that's where those bright reds and oranges come from.
Yes, those incredibly vibrant red-orange colors, sometimes even black, purple, or yellow. It makes the Badlands so unique and beautiful. Fire, ironically, ends up being major sculptor here.
So putting it all together, what does this mean when you're actually standing there in Theodore Roosevelt National Park today? What unique landforms should you look out for?
Well, when you visit, you'll immediately notice the buttes. They're everywhere.
These distinctive hills, steep sides, flat top.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating about them is the difference between their north and south sides.
How so?
The south-facing slope gets baked by the sun. It's usually steeper, rockier. But the north-facing slope gets less direct sun, so it holds more moisture. And because it holds more moisture, it can support trees, like juniper. And the roots of those trees help hold the soil together, preventing erosion.
So you get this stark contrast on the same hill.
A really dramatic visual contrast, yeah. And remember, these buttes only exist because of that differential erosion. They're protected by those hard cap layers of sandstone, limestone, or very often clinker.
Right, the hard hat protecting the rest.
Pretty much.
Beyond the buttes, what other sort of flat areas might you see?
Well, you'll definitely encounter the floodplains along the Little Missouri River.
Down by the river itself.
Yeah, these broad, flat areas, they get flooded periodically, which leaves behind really rich, fertile soil.
Okay. And higher up.
Higher up, you might find plateaus. These are also flat plains, but at higher elevations, they tend to be pretty windy.
So different plants grow there.
Yeah, you find hardy prairie plants with really deep root systems. They need to anchor themselves well and find water.
So despite all these dramatic Badlands formations, the buttes, the canyons, the park isn't just rock and clinker.
Oh, absolutely not. That's crucial to remember.
It's also a living ecosystem.
Yes. Most of Theodore Roosevelt National Park is actually prairie, a vast grassland ecosystem.
The foundation for everything else.
Exactly. It provides essential habitat for thousands of living things forming the base of the food chain. You'll see a rich variety of native grasses, shrubs, relatively few trees, except maybe tucked into protected valleys or on those north-facing slopes we talked about.
And this whole sculpting process, the erosion, it isn't over, is it? It's still happening.
Not at all. It's an ongoing, active process. Visitors can witness it.
How?
Well, the yearly precipitation, even though it only averages about 15 inches,
Doesn't sound like much.
no, but it often comes in really heavy erosive downpours. Rainwater just rushes downhill, carving new gullies.
And the bentonite clay plays a role too.
Big time. When that water soaks into those bentonite-rich rocks, they get heavy and unstable. Yeah, sometimes portions of hillsides just break loose and flow downhill. You get landslides.
So the landscape is literally moving.
It's a truly dynamic, living landscape. If you visit a place like, say, the Painted Canyon Overlook,
Yeah.
you can see this dramatic, colorful valley. There are beautiful trails there, maybe about 2 miles long, where you can walk down into it. It's a perfect spot to witness these forces at work.
But hands off the rocks and fossils, right?
Absolutely critical. Remember, collecting any park resource, rock, fossil, plant, isn't allowed. Every single piece is a clue, part of the story that needs to stay put for future visitors and for scientists trying to understand it all.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture takeaway here?
I think it's that Theodore Roosevelt National Park isn't just a static place, a pretty picture. It's a living laboratory of deep time.
Yeah, showing us in real time how landscapes we might think of as permanent are actually constantly being shaped.
Shaped by forces as simple yet profound as water, wind, ice, even fire. It really challenges our whole perception of permanent.
It's a powerful reminder then that this park is this dynamic, ever-changing geological canvas.
Exactly. Forces that started millions of years ago are still working today, inch by inch, year by year, revealing new layers of Earth's story with every season.
So imagine how the forces of nature over millions of years can sculpt landscapes so unique that they seem, as Roosevelt said, hardly properly to belong to this Earth.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. What other everyday landscapes out there might hold similarly epic geological stories just waiting for us to uncover them if only we knew how to read the rocks?